but I better check with you that you understand what I mean by the word purchase. And I don't mean going to the shop and buying something. Yeah. Do you understand what, if you want to purchase on something, what that means? That you've got a grip on it, you can get a handle on it. For instance, if I stand on this rubber matting with these socks, I've got a lot of purchase. Yeah. If I try to do this, it's hard to do. But if I stand on this, not so much purchase, a bit more slippery. I can scoot really easily, but on this, I can't scoot. So there's a lot of friction. So purchase has to do with finding just enough friction and just enough hold to be able to use that surface for something. And looking at how you're all set up. Yeah, this number 66 mat has got good purchase, you see. Yeah. Yeah. And yoga mats are designed for that purchase so that you can have your ground. I'm looking, this material here. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. So know that I'll be asking you to find purchase at different places so that you can use the surface to move yourself with. Too much slippery stuff, no good. All right, so let's begin. Please lie on your back. Bring your attention to the place that your pelvis contacts the floor, the back of your pelvis. And now begin to move your pelvis right and left. Your legs are long. And as you move your pelvis right and left, rolling it right and left, notice, when do you pass over the middle of the back of your pelvis? Now gradually make that rolling a little smaller and a little smaller and a little smaller until it's so small that you're kind of rolling over the very middle of the back of your pelvis. Not to the left, not to the right, more or less in the middle. And it's an activity that you're doing, a little micro roll left and right. Now notice, on which part of your pelvis are you resting on the floor? Is it different from the place that you noticed at the beginning? Now give up those movements and notice, does your pelvis settle into a different place when you're not oscillating left and right like that? If you find that your pelvis did settle onto a different place, bring it back to where it was when you were still doing those little small oscillations. And then stop the oscillations and let the pelvis settle again. Does it return to a different place? Does it settle in a different place? And now return to that place where you can do those left-right oscillations. stay there. Stop doing the oscillations and intentionally roll your pelvis towards your head so that the tailbone gets higher from the floor, and then away from your head so that your lower back gets a little higher from the floor. So you roll your pelvis upwards and you roll your pelvis downwards. And you have a couple of references for yourself: the tailbone and the lower back. Notice that your pelvis is rolling over ground. It's rolling over the mat that you're resting on. It's not sliding on the mat, is it? The difference between rolling the pelvis along the ground and sliding the back of the pelvis over the ground. Now, continue to do that for a little longer. And because your pelvis is so strongly apart and attached to your spine, notice what happens when you roll your pelvis upwards. Feel how your spine gets pushed. And then when you roll your pelvis downwards, feel how your spine gets pulled. There's a push and there's a pull. When your spine is getting pushed, what other parts of yourself get moved as well? There are a number of other parts of yourself directly attached to the spine. How many of those parts can you sense being moved via the push of the spine? The same thing with the pull. There are so many parts of yourself attached to the spine that when you move the pelvis and pull the spine, those parts will be invited into motion. How much of yourself can you feel being invited into motion by the pull of your spine? And as that becomes clearer for you, what's happening in your ribs, in your shoulders, in your neck and your head, go a little faster. It could be that a change in speed will illuminate other parts that were moving but were not quite yet aware of. Maybe a change in speed will bring them into your awareness. Good. Stop and rest. This is one of those kinds of lessons in which you pretty much do the same thing all the way throughout, but you find different ways of doing it. This business of pushing and pulling the spine, that's going to be consistent throughout the whole lesson. The spine being pushed upwards, the spine being pulled downwards. But how you do it, what parts of yourself you use to create the impetus for it, that's going to vary. So now please bend both of your legs and stand your feet on the floor. And have your legs slightly arranged differently to usual. Have less bend in the knees so that the heels aren't as close to the buttocks as they usually are. And now begin to use the power of your legs to roll your pelvis to push and pull your spine. If your feet are on a slippery surface, it's going to be hard to generate the power. So there's something about the way the feet are on the floor. You look for a purchase so that you can use the floor as a place to work from. Just like a good Tai Chi master does. A good Tai Chi master looks for how to use the earth as a place to move from. Feel free to change the distance of your heels from your buttocks. Feel free to change how far apart the legs are from each other or how close. Feel free to change the direction in which your toes are pointing. And find out, how much power do you really need to exert in order to sense clearly that your spine is being pushed up and being pulled down? Because that's what you're interested in. Just enough power to push the spine and then to pull the spine. And over time, you'll discover that you can use less power as you get better organized. And there's nothing magic about that word organized. It just means you begin to use your body, use your skeleton in a way that is more not only effective, but efficient. Continue for just a little bit longer and expand your field of attention to include the back of your head on the floor. Notice whether the back of your head is rolling on the floor, upwards and downwards. And is there a correlation between the rolling of the head and the movement you're creating in the spine? And now switch your attention from being on the back of the head to the front of the head and notice the relationship between the chin and your throat. Does that relationship change as you push and pull the spine? When does the chin move towards the throat? On the push or on the pull? And when you know what the chin is doing, does that give you a clear image of what the skull is doing at the back on the floor? Which way is the skull rolling when the chin moves towards the throat? Please leave that and rest. What's the after effect of those movements that you've just made? What's the sensory afterglow? Have your legs long and roll both of your legs towards each other and then away from each other. And as you do that, pay attention to the heels and how the heels roll along the floor. Try out different distances of the legs from each other. Is there a distance of the legs where the rolling becomes more equal in both directions? Now, if you've got your legs completely touching, well, then that obliterates inward rolling completely. They don't have anywhere to go. Yeah, so where is it easiest? Not only to roll the legs, but equally, more or less, in both directions. Now, when you find that place, leave the legs with that degree of separation. And the next time that you roll your legs and you find the back of your heels on the floor, leave the heels in that relationship with the floor. Back of the heels to the floor, toes towards the ceiling. Ever so slightly, push into the floor with the back of your heels. Push backwards. There's no need to flex and extend your ankles. Nothing to do with the ankles. Just give a little bit of a push backwards, as if you wanted to create a little indentation on the floor. Try doing that with a slight bend of the knees. Notice whether bending the knees pushes the heels into the floor. Now, if that works for you, bend the knees just enough to feel that little bit of a push. Now, that push creates a purchase, creates an extra, bless you, creates an extra pressure on the floor, bless you again, that you can use. Now, create that pressure, maintain that pressure, and now roll the heels so that your feet flap towards your face and then flap away from your face. And I'm using the word flap because it has, it connotes a very particular quality. Use your legs, the movement of your heels, to push your spine upwards and to pull your spine downwards. If you let your knees buckle too much, you eat up all of the force produced by the calf and the shin muscles. So there's something that you need to do with your knees that allows the force to continue through you. That's it. That's different. Yeah. Enough bend in the knees to get a good purchase, but not bendy, bendy, extendy lees where the force just dissipates. So all good Jedi learn how to focus the force. That's right. Now, remember that business with the head that I was directing your attention towards? Is the back of your head rolling on the floor in such a way that you can sense the chin goes towards the throat and away from the throat? It's not about contracting the muscles of the neck, by the way. The more you can leave the head quiet and the muscles of the neck quiet, the easier your head will rock. And there's nothing to do with your abdomen, by the way, or your back muscles. You're doing basically all of this rocking with the muscles of the lower leg and the shin. So it's the same effect, a push and pull through the spine, but a completely new set of muscles doing the work of moving the skeleton. Great. Stop and rest. I think there's a technical term for this in, I think it's in both neuroscience and computer science of redundancy, that you have many different functional organizations to do the same task. If one gets knocked out, the other one can still operate. And this seems to be a major feature of all living biological systems. They have redundancy, otherwise they're brittle. And that's the FI that you were doing yesterday and today. Not to be brittle. Now, bend your legs, put the soles of your feet together so that the heels, the underneath of the heels are touching and the soles are touching. Notice that the sides, the outside edges of the feet, now rest on the floor. Use the outside edges of the feet to get a purchase on the floor so that you can push and pull your spine. If you need to change the distance of your heels from your buttocks, do so. And another thing, if you need to change the height of your knees from the floor, do so. Sometimes people who I teach this lesson to think that their knees should just be floppy and this is about having flexible hip joints. No, 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 no. This is about your legs being in just the right arrangement to generate power to push the spine elegantly and to pull the spine elegantly. And I'm using the word elegant as a substitute for efficient. Elegant just means nothing is wasted. Now stop. Shift both of your feet a little bit more to the right. The soles are still together so that you're a little bit off midline. Remember the other day when we did that midline lesson? Be a little bit off to the midline to the right, and now the same movement. Find the purchase of the floor and begin to use the musculature of the legs to push the spine and pull the spine. And notice what's different in how the force goes through you. Notice if your head does something different. Or maybe you feel the force go more off to one shoulder or the other shoulder. Okay, now let's create an intentional difference. Now slide your feet to the other side of the midline, to the left of the midline, and do that. Continue. What's different? Now, some people are able to tell the difference when the time between one and another event is quite large. They're able to keep the memory of the sensations alive. Other people are not so good. So maybe you need to do a few movements with the feet to the left of the midline, stop, then do a few movements with the feet to the right to the midline, stop, go back and forth, and quickly going between one and the other. That will give you a sense of difference. And then once you have that distinction clearly present in your awareness, go looking for the position of the feet where the purchase and the push create a line straight through you, directly to the head, upwards, and then away from the head downwards. And there's no deviation, left or right. It's just one direct line. And it's hard to describe what that feeling is. But I can assure you that when you experience it, you'll know it. So long as you have the contrasts. Not going to the left, not going to the right. Oh, that's it. Okay, stop, rest again. So you've used the flexors and the extensors of the trunk to roll the pelvis, to push and pull the spine. Then you use the flexors and extensors of the ankle through the purchase of the heels to push and pull the spine. And you also used the flexors and the extensors of the hip joints to push and pull the spine. And this variation that you just did, it's kind of the same, but a little different. And maybe some of you found that with your legs in this configuration, in the so-called froggy configuration, you could really push and pull the spine in a way that you couldn't necessarily when your feet were standing on the floor and your knees were towards the ceiling. Bend your legs, stand your feet. Now, this is where you need to make a choice. If you've clearly felt that you could use your feet, the purchase of your feet on the floor, to push and pull your spine with your knees towards the ceiling, use that. If you felt that having the soles of the feet together and the outside edges on the floor gave you that sense of clarity pushing up and down, use that. And now start to use your legs to push and pull your spine. Arrange your arms beside yourself with the palms on the floor and the elbows further away from the torso than the hands. I'll repeat that. Your arms are beside you. The palms are on the floor. And your elbows are further away from your torso than your palms. Now gradually, still using the power of your legs to push and pull the spine, push and pull and push and pull, start to assist with the arms. And to assist with the arms, you're going to have to find a purchase on the floor with the hands at least. Now, when the arms get into the act, you can start to play with proportions. How much leg power, how much arm power. And you can sense in yourself when you don't need leg power anymore, that it can just be arm power. Yeah, that's slippery, huh? I was going to put that under your hands, actually. There you go. So now you're using the power of the shoulder girdle and the arms to produce the same pushing and pulling of the spine. But because the shoulder girdle is so close to the neck, can you still allow the head and neck to be free enough so that the head can roll and the chin can go towards and away from the throat? And now just go back and forth. Arms, then legs. Legs, then arms. Until you get very fluent at both being able to carry out the same intent. The power of the arms pushing and pulling the spine, and the power of the legs pushing and pulling the spine. You know, if you want, you can lift your elbows from the floor. It's possible. Don't have to have the elbows on the floor. That's enough. Stop and rest, please. One of the so-called ideals that we have about well-organized action is that it not only just gets the job done, I mean, that's a given. You know, all actions to be good need to get the job done. But the action needs to get done in such a way that the body performing the action doesn't deteriorate because of doing the action. Or as Feldenkrais has to put it, or as Feldenkrais puts it, the doing of the action should leave the person in a better state, not in a worse state. And one of the ways of accomplishing that is to distribute the work over the parts of yourself that can contribute. And in this lesson, it's a really nice lesson to illustrate that. Some of the work can be done by your legs, and in a differentiated way, the lower leg and the upper leg. Some of the work can be done by your arms. Some of the work can be done by your trunk. Where else can the work be done? Leave your legs long. Raise your arms towards the ceiling. Clasp your hands together. Keep the elbows straight. And imagine that your two arms were like a single pendulum. Start to take that pendulum towards your feet and away from your feet. And find a speed of motion that starts to push and pull your spine. Now this is interesting. No purchase on the ground. And yet you start to create a longitudinal oscillation through yourself. But wait a minute. There is a purchase on the ground. Your shoulder blades, can you feel it? Yeah. There's a part of you that is in contact with the ground, and if you find just the right speed, just the right amplitude of oscillation, you start to rock yourself. So experiment with speed, because there is a certain speed and a certain amplitude. If you make it too big, it won't happen. I can drop a hint word here. How would you need to move your arms to create a jiggle through yourself? Now, jiggles are tiny little things. Jiggles are not earthquakes. Some of you are moving your arms so big, you're trying to create an earthquake. No, San Francisco. This is not the San Francisco training. We're in Melbourne. No, thankfully, I've only ever experienced one earthquake in Melbourne. That's it. It's like tuning a guitar string. You're looking for just the right note, but you know, to make that note, the guitar string has to vibrate. So think of your arms as like these vibrating pendula. And in doing, when you find just the right frequency, it's like Jello time. Especially if you've got wobbly bits. Yep, I got wobbly bits. Yeah, nearly there. Can you feel your heels rocking? Can you feel your head rocking? Yeah, cool. Cool. Hey, you're getting there, nearly there. Yay, good. Wonderful. Stop and rest. It's a cold day today, huh? I can feel the cold air starting to pour down those stairs. Better warm you up. Bend your legs, stand your feet. Have your feet standing. Give the spine a bit of a push and a pull. Notice how that's going. Is it possible to use less power? What's the saying? That's saying more bang for your buck. That's why you put premium petrol in your car, not that cheap stuff. You get more bang for your buck. Now stop. Lift your pelvis high enough from the floor that you can't detect contact anymore between your pelvis and the floor. And now, once again, use the power of your legs to push and pull your spine. And notice what part of your back is getting moved along the floor. Some parts of your back are now off the floor. Some parts are now leaning more into the floor. Now lift your pelvis a little higher and continue. And now notice which parts of your back are getting rocked. It's almost like if you change the height of your pelvis from the floor, you can address different parts of your back with the rolling, with the pushing and the pulling. So for the next few moments, you experiment higher, lower, higher still. Some of you I know are capable of lifting your pelvis so high that you could be resting on that part of your back that's almost at the top of your shoulder blades. But there's no imperative to do that. Just keep on noticing how the rocking, the pushing and the pulling of the spine affects different levels of your back. When you vary the height of the pelvis from the floor. Ah, someone's got their arms forward and is combining the rocking with the arm movement. That's nice. Maybe you can use your arms a little bit. Oh, sure. Yeah. That movement always reminds me of the Monty Python skit, you know, where they have the hankies on their head and they're from, I think they're from Yorkshire. It's very funny. If I find it, I'll bring it for you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. Great, let that be and rest, please. Now, really, I won't say much more, just simply rest. I won't talk for the next few moments. Have your legs long and go back to that very first movement that you did of rolling your pelvis upwards so that the tailbone comes off the floor, and then rolling your pelvis downwards so that your lower back gets higher from the floor, and go back and forth and notice what that's like now. Do the flexors and the extensors of your trunk have to work as hard as they did at the beginning? It could be that through doing all those variations, you've created a suppleness in yourself. Muscles that were holding on too much are now not holding on as much. And if that's the case, you don't have to use as much muscle power to move yourself because the flow is there. That little roll produces a flow all the way to the head, and the other direction of roll creates a push and a pull and then a push and a pull. And if there's no resistance, it takes so little power to make the head rock. And so often in table-based, hands-on based functional integration, this is so often a test movement, a reference movement of putting your hands on a person's pelvis, rolling them to feel how much moves when I put in this much power. Stop, let that be. Without disturbing yourself too much, could you please get yourself a roller to put underneath the back of your pelvis. Now, if you like to have your pelvis high, if that's what you're curious about, get a big roller. If you want to have your pelvis low, get a little roller. And if you want to be doing a shoulder stand, you'll need a supersized roller, commonly known as a wall. I don't know what joke was there, but it sounds good. Options. All right. Now bend your legs, stand your feet, and place that roller underneath yourself. And we're using the roller for a very specific purpose, to alleviate you of the work that's needed to have the pelvis a certain height from the floor. Which means now any power that you generate in the legs is all dedicated to the push and the pull of the spine. So go ahead and do that. Would you like a firmer one or a smaller one? Yeah. Okay. Now the quality of the roller should be such that it's reasonably comfortable to lie on, that it doesn't feel like it's poking into you so much that some part of you responds and go, oh, I got to get myself off that roller. And usually that's the unconscious part. I can do this. I can tolerate this. This is fine. I can lie on this cardboard roller and it's hard and it's pushing into me. I know it's good for me. It's good. I'll stay here. So you want a roller that's soft enough not to produce that negative emotional effect. Get off this roller! But you also want a roller firm enough to be able to roll. If it can't roll, you're going to have to generate more force because there's friction or there's deformation of the roller. So this is the craft of roller. This is roller craft. Remember there was that skating show? Roller derby. That was wild. No, this is just roller craft. The art of using a roller. For what purpose? Well, for this purpose, hey, that's good. The purpose here is to be able to transmit force. The force produced. You're going for, oh, you're having a good time. Yeah. Go quicker. Quick, small movements. Quick, small. Quick, small. At what speed do you need to go to start to experience the viscera actually moving inside the abdominal cavity? I'll risk using the word slosh. And if you pay close attention, the viscera are always moving slightly out of phase with the harder parts of yourself. Definitely out of phase with the bones, right? because it takes a while for the viscera to catch up to the speed of the bones, and by the time they have, your bones have moved in the other direction. So there's always a little bit of a time lag between the two, and that's what produces the sloshing. And there's a certain frequency that's needed, and it's unique to every one of you. There's a whole system of somatic, it's actually body work, yeah, called Traeger. And they find, these Traeger practitioners find just the right frequency for every body part to oscillate you. And I've got to tell you, it feels like magic. It's a wonderful feeling. When you're resonating with yourself, isn't that what you're doing? You're finding the resonance that just works for you. Wonderful. That's called harmonics. And I'm not being woo-woo, new agey. No, I mean, this is just physics. This is the physics of harmonics. Yes. You get not just a single note, you get the harmonics around the note. So you've got the skeletal harmonic, and then you've got the visceral harmonic. And, you know, if this was a more differentiated lesson, there'd be the muscular harmonic and blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're starting to experiment with different size rollers. Yeah, I encourage you to do that. Try different height rollers. Oh, different firm rollers. Connective tissue work. But it's good to try. How else will you know? How else will you know unless you try it out? So you can imagine the discussion after a class where you've used several rollers. Well, darling, you know, I like the 6-inch roller. That was really good for me. Oh, no, I like the 12-inch. The 12-inch is much better. And as long as you and I are not confused about the purpose, and the purpose is not to intentionally address the connective tissue system here. The purpose is to find the efficiency and to address different levels of the trunk and organize them differently. Now, as you continue to play with the rollers, I'm going to suggest another imaginary game to play with. As you continue to oscillate the way you are, and your spine is getting pushed and pulled, put some imaginary hands somewhere. Would those hands be on the front of your pelvis, rocking you from the pelvis? Would they be on your knees, rocking you from your knees? Would they be on the front of your shin bone, rocking you from the shins? Would the hands be underneath your neck, the back of your neck, and gently pulling and pulling and pulling and pushing the neck? Where could you place these hands that you could make sense of? Oh, yeah, the person could push and pull me from here. The person could push and pull me from there. I'm sure this is unhygienic. Are you disinfecting that roller when you share it? Oh. Oh, yeah, look at that. That's a super roller. You see, when your pelvis is high up like that, can you feel how you're in that right when you manage it? Just between the shoulder blades? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Okay. Just a few more moments to experiment maybe with another roller. I know that when Feldenkrais was working in Israel, his rollers were wooden, pretty firm and hard. Yeah, it's tricky when it's high, yeah? So then you quickly learn, too high, not today. Okay. Now to finish off this lesson, come get off the roller, stop being on a roll and lie on the floor. And with your legs long, arrange your legs so that you could use your heels to rock and have purchase on the floor so that you can create a push and pull through yourself and feel what that's like. If should you feel your heels rubbing the floor, that's the sensation you don't want. So find the purchase of the floor so that there's friction, and then use the rolling motion of the heels to, yeah. So how's that feel? Are you able to produce an accent? Could you accent up, 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 up? Now can you accent down, 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 down? Now can you put an equal accent? No accent. And then just simply rest. Hmm. Now, we're going to go into a break, which means you'll have the time that you need to get up the floor, sense yourself, have a cup of tea, go to the bathroom, then we'll come back. And when we come back, could you get into three groups? Three groups. And could you take turns at watching each other doing those various movements? And as you watch each other, can you see anywhere that you anticipate could be moving, but it's not? Yep. So open that out, take your time, come back, three groups. Oop, I'm still on.